Well,
Exactly.
thank you very much for having me again. I know that I'm aware that many people have been waiting to hear about what's going on. And I think that before I start, I want to point out that if, there was any concerns, anything that's material, I have to talk about. And ultimately, if the bank continues to do the drawdowns, their independent engineer Hatch is happy. So I think everyone needs to remember, we build in a democracy, a non-mining democracy, and we have to tread carefully, cautiously, and quietly. So please don't apply the standard of for your building in Australia. Every time I put a pole in the ground, I do a photograph. So let me begin this new presentation. I am Lewis Black. I'm the CEO and founder of Almonty Industries. We are currently, we are the largest and longest producer outside of China. We've been doing this for many years. We produce, we have mining production in Portugal. I'd like to point out that we are, in fact, unfortunately, one of the very few mining companies in tungsten outside of China whose mines make money. It's not an easy metal, but well, it's an easy metal, but it's about project. And we've always been fortunate in the projects that we have. We have a mine in production. We have a mine under construction in Korea. We have a development project, and we have a past producing mine with a tailings facility that we're looking now to bring online shortly. Samdong, I think we've spoken about this previously, and I think it's well known of the strength of this project. The funding, it's funded, it's done, it's under construction. Offtake, unique offtake, we've spoken about this many times. I'm not sure whether the market really understands or appreciates the quality of this offtake, given its rather, well, it's very unusual hard floor, but no cap on the upside. But it's there, it's done, and it's 15 years. I'm also aware that there have been some kind of scandals that we only have 12 years. It's a 15-year contract, and it begins as soon as we start to ship material. We have in this presentation to talk about a new development, which is an extension plan of Panasqueira. And of course, I've spoken about this in the past, downstream of Samdong in phase 2. Ultimately, when everything, all bogeys are hit, and we've been hitting them, albeit sometimes more slowly than some of you would like, but we hit all of them consistently, we will account for around 43% of non-Chinese supply, roughly 7 to 8% of global supply. Right now, the market is 92% from China, Vietnam, and Russia. So we will be by far the most transparent organization, as well as being vertical. The key industries for this are military defense, semiconductors, microchips, mining, oil, gas, drilling, tungsten oxide battery applications, cathode anodes. Tungsten is in every single sector of every part of your industrial and technology economy. And it's very unique in that sense. Of course, South Korea is a very voracious consumer of tungsten, highest per capita in the world. And if you look at the territories that consume tungsten, so we have Japan, South Korea, the EU, and the United States. These are the 4 primary areas. There is no domestic production in the United States. There is no domestic production in Japan. There is merely 2 operating mines in the 3 in the EU, and soon there'll be 1 in South Korea. So ultimately, we have an enormous advantage, of course, with that. And in terms of our growth rates, we estimate conservatively 7 to 8% per year until 2030. And past 2030, I'm going to see where we're at, but we can't really look out much further than that. The corporate snapshot, I think, is fairly straightforward. Of course, our stock has taken a beating, all kinds of theories behind it. There are no scandals lurking under any floorboards here. I think what has been demonstrated, that was announced end of last week, it's myself, Lewis, and Dan, my business partner for 20-something years, and we're both founders of Almonty. We are confident in this company to an extent where we were the major participants in the latest round. a raise. I think that's always the best way to demonstrate to the wider market there is no smoking gun here. There is no problems. Yes, we always have things that take longer than we would like, but anything, as I said, anything material will be disclosed, and there is nothing material. So Dan and I lead from the front to say, look, we believe that everything in this company is as it should be. KfW believes everything as it should be. And to be honest, down here at this stock price, I'm going to make a killing. That's, I'm just saying, but I'm going to make a killing. I think this slide is fairly self-explanatory. Panasqueira, of course, our Portuguese mine running for over 130 years now. Sangdong under construction. Valtrachal is, essentially in development in the sense that the permits are now, everything is done. We're just now waiting for the final piece of paper. And Los Santos tailings, my plan is to do the tailings whilst disassembling part of that plant and moving it to Valtrachal once that last piece of paper arrives, Valtrachal. Price of tungsten has held up remarkably well, but that's not really any great surprise. It's being fueled essentially from the United States and from the defense sector. So those two sectors have been the drivers. Oil and gas and defense in the US, of course, semiconductors and batteries in Korea, but they've been 97% of their tungsten comes from China. And also, of course, as I said, compared to other commodities, yes, it's held up very well. Again, these are some backgrounds on the growing demand of tungsten. I think everyone who is watching this is very aware of what drives this. And, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, defense is becoming more and more relevant in our sector. The last time we saw this kind of growth in defense spending was in the 50s, where tungsten was more valuable than gold. It's terrible to think that the misery that we see is fueling the boom in tungsten, but defense spending is accelerating at a pace that we haven't seen for 30 years. And I think this is going to have quite a profound effect on pricing during next year. Who are we? Well, we've been very successful in tungsten. Previous time we were in the industry, we sold our project for 21 times earnings because it was a strategic acquisition. Tungsten is a strategic metal, and it should be judged as a strategic metal. We say profitable company. Our mines make money. Yes, our numbers show losses at a corporate level because we're a development company, because we're developing the world's largest tungsten mine. That costs money, but our mines make money in the past. There is no disputing that. And that, I think, is testament to the strength of how we organize and operate as tungsten operators. Financing is done, offtake is done. We are very aware of what our Western consumers expect from our projects in terms of transparency and in terms of ESG. We've complied with that for many years. We have sites in multiple jurisdictions, all of them in safe jurisdictions. And currently we have 2 near-term growth stories, which I will discuss in a little bit. As an example of what we're seeing in the market, we currently receive a more than 15% premium on our material from Portugal. This is not because we're wonderful people and people like us, which may be true anyway, but because we produce essentially the cleanest material in the world there. It is a very desirable product. It is totally transparent, and it is 100% dependable. You know that you will be delivered to on time, to spec. And if you look at our product, it is homogeneous. You can take a handful in bag number 3 and a bag number 12, and they will be identical in size and spec. And the way that we basically conduct ourselves, the way that we operate, is increasingly important to our customers. We are achieving all of our milestones. I know that everyone would like to see it happen quicker, but it is much more important to walk to the finish line than run, because this way we avoid the holes that exist in the road. And that is very important to do, because a hole in a road at a mine is a very, very expensive problem, and we don't want those. We consider ourselves to be the primary source of tungsten from a strategic point of view. This is borne out by the fact that the Austrian, German, Korean, and now soon the United States government say so. And I think that should be enough of endorsement to our shareholders. And as I said, we are one of the largest producers and will be by far the largest in a growing market. Samdong, of course, we're all aware of the size and scale. There's no disputing the fact that this is it's the greatest project that exists. I mean, it's just, there's no, our own sector will acknowledge that. And the project and financing and offtake, this is all news that you're all very familiar with. And I think there's nothing unexpected here. We have two governments, the Austrian and German government, who have become involved in this and have supported this. They rely heavily on their independent engineer, Hatch, who have just been for their most recent visit and signed off. No red flags. Everything is proceeding as they expected. So ultimately, I think this is a positive. And of course, our partnership with Plancy is very well known. And they are also the ones, or GDP, are the ones who are now introducing the United States government to us in regard to Panasqueira, which I will talk about shortly. It is an enormous deposit. We don't really even know how big it is, but I think this is old news, and I think a well-trodden path. This is our timeline. Everyone get your cameras out, take pictures. This presentation will be up on our site shortly. There is no expected change in our commissioning. We don't post lots of pictures, one, because I'm not a big fan of essentially waving a red flag at an NGO bull saying, come get me. Rely on the fact that if KfW allows drawdowns and Hatch permits that to happen because they sign off, progress is underway. But we live in a very different world now in the last 5 years. Discretion is the better word of valor. If you need any support to understand that, know that Dan D'Amato and myself will continue to support this company because we know what's going on and we are comfortable with the progress. The downstream, this is certainly becoming a much more mature proposition. We are working now with an engineering group. We are already underway with working with KfW, and we are already in very late stage discussions regarding the equity component for this concept. This is something which has become more and more relevant in Korea in the last 4 years. And we believe that ultimately this will be a very desirable part of our strategy. The moly, I love the moly. What can I say? I have a soft spot for it. I'm in a country which is the 4th largest importer of moly in the world. It makes complete sense to develop this for the domestic market. Tungsten is front and center right now, but be assured this is not off my radar. And I would like to think that I get a little time that would free up to really put this to bed in terms of a clear and defined strategy to finance and open this with the cooperation and assistance of the domestic moly consuming market. Panasqueira. Well, normally we just talk about Panasqueira. It's been a long time. We do a great job and that's it. But something's happened in the last month. And it's important that we disclose it. And this is the forum I'm choosing to disclose it. What is Panasqueira? Panasqueira is the oldest running mine in the world. I mean, unless somebody out there can tell me something that's run for longer than 135 years continuously, I think this one holds the record. It's an extraordinary deposit. Very similar in its design as Samdong. This gives you an idea why we're confident when we say we have 90+ years out of Samdong. We've seen this before in tungsten. But what's happened is that there is a supply deficit large looming deficit that we're seeing in the United States. And we have developed a program to open level 4 at Panasqueira. Now, that sounds very dramatic, but it's actually not that dramatic. We already operate level 0, 1, 2, and 3. Level 4 would mean we just take the vertical shaft a little further, raise bore, it's not a big issue, an access ramp, and infrastructure. The plant on surface can easily handle this additional tonnage. But we've always steered away from it because it is capital intensive to do. And our focus has always been sound on. Until there's a government that is willing to look at doing this for their own benefit. And that changed everything. So because we already have surface infrastructure, we have the ability to hold, to basically tram, we have crushing facility. There's nothing more we need to do. This is merely an extension, an expansion of an existing mine, a mine that we've known well for 135 years. Therefore, there are no surprises. There are no unknowns. This is, from a risk point of view, as good as it gets. But again, it's all been about the capital-intensive nature of doing this. We may now have found a solution. And so this project that's been in our mind for years now has legs. Well, 1886, this started. It's seen wars and it's seen peace and it's seen good times and bad times, but it's still here. And in global terms, it is the second largest global producer in the world in terms of its tonnage that it's produced. We have a product that is enormously desirable. And if we go with level 4, we have operational continuity into 2052, and we can go past that if we so chose. Level 4 is of a similar size to level 3, which was a similar size to level 2. So we have in level 1 and level 0, we know exactly what we are going to expect. These areas have been drilled, they've been examined, we know what we have there, we have a high degree of confidence. So on September 29th, we had a visit from the US Department of Commerce. This was essentially a delegation that came with GDP, and it's essentially around the fact that Panasqueira's strategic role for improving tungsten supply for the United States. The DLA, Defense Logistics Agency, which has been the primary source of tungsten from their stockpile for the United States manufacturers for 20 years, is in fact depleted as of the end of this year. And one of the obviously concerns that they have is that the United States requires ESG compliant material that is transparent and clean. No, UTH, no phosphorus, no funny business. Because of course they're a government, they're under scrutiny 24/7. So it makes complete sense for Panasqueira to develop level 4 for the benefit of the United States market and the DLA. As I said, traction is now being built. They made the effort to come and see us. I have now continuing conversations with all the different departments that I have to deal with. And basically, I think this presents a unique opportunity for not just Panasqueira, but Almonty generally. As I said, surface works, this is what's interesting to the United States. We have a long life, infrastructure is already in place, the risk profile is almost minimized to nothing because it's an extension of essentially an existing mine. We have an enormous amount of data on level 4, and we don't need to do anything on surface for this additional output. And so what this really means is that our reserve base doesn't change, but it means that we can now have an additional growth area in Panasqueira. And that's very important. So What does this mean to our growth? Well, it's going to increase when we combine it with Shandong and the downstream, even further our margin and our output and our revenue. Can see because of the grade that we deal with in Shandong and with the efficiency of recovery we deal with in Portugal, our margins are quite exceptional. And I think we can stand by these margins because we have operated tungsten mines for a long time. And we're not operating any mine here that is a new build, something that we don't know an awful lot about. These are highly predictable growth projects. I think what's important is that we can see dramatic EBITDA, dramatic revenue, and I think we will have an enormous re-rating, not just from these numbers, but also because strategically the value providing ultimately 43% of non-Chinese supply in totally transparent jurisdictions, which are all long life. All of our projects go out, well, in Panasqueira, you're looking, 20, 25 years right there, probably even longer, and of course, Shandong. So this is just basically a very brief thing. ESG, we are very aware of. We conform to that across our group. And that's, if I'm looking at my watch correctly, brings me on to the inevitable questions that I'm going to have. I'd like to thank you for listening to the presentation. I think I've given you a lot to think about. I bet you weren't expecting anything about Panasqueira, but it's always good to surprise my shareholders, especially when it's positive and it's related to growth, further growth.
Well, Lewis, thank you very much for the presentation. First of all, thank you for using our platform to reveal this news. This is obviously a game changer for anyone that follows the mining industry, how it works and so on. Such level 4 would obviously transcend what's happening right now in the company. I invite everyone. We've got so many participants. Again, guys, Mr. Black is here. Please fire up your questions. There's no question he never said no to. He's always explaining everything. So this is your chance.
Well, as long as it starts politely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my point is that we're not in a chat room right now. This is the time to talk to you rather than spreading rumors or saying stuff. Ask directly. This is where we stand. So first of all, I have.
Just before you start, I just want to say to the public forum, one of my key guys in Portugal has been very poorly recently. He's getting on in years, so I'm wishing him the best because we've been together for 20 years. He's been my right hand in Portugal, and it terrifies me to think of not having him around. He seems to be getting stronger, but I just want to let everyone know that we're all of us are thinking of him very strongly because I'm sure he's watching this.
Well, then a good thought from the IIF team also to your partner, Lewis. Okay, so let's hit it. So first of all, long letter from Manfred. Basically, he wants to know things that you confirmed, but commissioning of the mine has been delayed. Impossible to understand why the various components come from different countries and even components. You get the idea. A general contractor produce all the components, should be centralized and so on. Maybe if you can walk up a little bit into the problem of building such a massive thing. People don't understand. I'm in the mining industry. I do get it. The specificities of the equipment, how long before you need to order them, when they arrive, and what's happening with the current supply chain, could maybe explain a little bit of to his question.
Metso Outotec is the primary source of equipment for the plant. They have operations all around the world, including China, Russia, Taiwan, Turkey, France, the United States, Canada. They are literally all over the world. And as they've built their business and grown, they've acquired different specialists in different areas. So, and Finland, of course, and Sweden, and Austria. So, I mean, they're everywhere. So when they put this together, you have different components manufactured in different sites. That's normal. Of course, with the Russian conflict, they had to pivot because they couldn't have access to their Russian and Ukrainian site. And we had some items that were due to be manufactured in China. And for some reason, they never seem to get made. Who would know? I mean, why wouldn't they make something for the world's largest tungsten mine? I could only speculate, and so can Metso. So Metso, in fact, moved that manufacture to Turkey. So yes, it is made all over the world. It's all made to the Metso Autotech standard. It is all made in Metso Autotech facilities. But yes, there's not one place that makes everything in one go. And then, of course, you're at the mercy of the shipping. Now, the shipping's got much better. We stress test everything before it's actually shipped. We identified one major problem with one of the crushers. That was corrected in France. Then he got caught up in a strike. Then I won't tell you how I got it out of that port, because it was blockaded by trade unionists. But now it's all in country. Delays are not a reasonable word to use. Delay implies problems. None of this are problems that weren't anticipated. If you look at building a mine in a democracy, don't consider Australia. Australia is a unique entity, but I'm talking about any other democracy. It's a multi-year program, especially a mine of this size. You have to ensure that especially a strategic project, everything is done correctly. You don't want to be in a situation where with a strategic asset, you have not done things correctly and you have problems later on with the jurisdiction in which you operate in. So I hope that clears up why things are made all over the world and regarding the supply chain shipping. Okay.
One more question. We're going to fire them up. It's 28, so maybe just a few sentences. I know it's not easy, but still. So let's go with, okay, when will be, I got asked that a lot of time, when will be Los Santos get in production?
I've got to put the money in, 1.3 million. You know, I got to put the money in, and right now I have a lot of things to pay. And given our stock performance, and given the fact that, you know, Dan and I pretty much stand alone right now, we're just gonna take a pause. I've got a big focus in Panasqueira. I would love to get Los Santos running. If anyone out there, you know, wants to help out, I'm available. Call me anytime. But right now I have to choose my fights, and my fight right now is for the U.S. government in Panasqueira and Samdong.
Someone is saying a comment that is saying that basically, you know, there's always been a new idea at Almonty, always something for growing in the future, but the resolve, the bottom line have not always been there. When will that kind of change, or when do you see this position?
That's not actually true. That's not true at all. It's not a fair statement. You know, ultimately, we said that we would get the best financing in the world. No one believed us, but we did it. We said a long time ago that we would ramp up to acquire the sites that we felt had great strategic importance. No one believed us, but we did it. I know this takes longer than you would like, but it's not true. We execute on what we say we're going to do. And if anyone's looking for a quick fix, every great company that doesn't fail in the first 10 years only starts to look really good after the first 10 years. And that's not just in mining, that's in every sector. We're a decade in, we're looking really good. But the journey, like all journeys of companies, is that we got to the finish line. Most companies fail in the first few years. That's not us. We have executed. We've been very careful not to do things for a headline. We've done it for a purpose, not to look glamorous, but to be smart. And that has always been the backbone of what we tried to do.
Well, I think that's a good way of finishing it. It's 4:30. I would have loved to take another 20 minutes of Q&A. There's a lot of questions are still added up, but I think in all together, there's still, we asked what was the essential points, and we draw the line on the positive comments also. I have to still tell you that there was a lot of positive comments also congratulating you and your team and so on. Those are just comments, no question, but still, I'm excited that they are here in the chat. So on that, Mr. Black, I thank you very much for being with us. I hope that you always like our events, even though the questions are not always easy, but this is why surely attendees like because we ask the questions. So thank you very much for it again.
Thank you very much.
Best
Have a great
of luck.
day. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
looking
having
forward
me.
to the update. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.